everyone. This is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about Welcome everyone. This is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about the idea of assessing your life. Now, this is going to be an area where many people are going to want to shy away from. If you remember last week, Wednesday's episode, we were talking about the idea of fear, the concept of fear, and we're saying, well, how can you get away from that fear and the methods to get away from that fear? A quick recap: if you want to get away from fear, you're going to have to face it head on, and it has to be immediate. Because if you don't do it immediately, you're going to find yourself to have more roadblocks and less action. And then the next thing is you just have to understand that fear is going to be something that you created for yourself. It's not real. Yes, there could be some danger in something, but it doesn't mean that fear should stop you. Because fear or insecurity might be similar to if someone believes something can or can't be done. Because fear is one of those things that are man-made, self-made, and we need to make sure that we don't allow it to run our life. But I encourage everyone to listen to that last week's episode on fear so you can start to understand the mentality of fear, because sometimes we get stuck and we need to learn how to get out of it. But today we're going to be talking about the idea of self-assessment. How do I know I'm on the right track? How do I know if I'm doing the right thing? How do I know that I'm not being told a lie? Because right now we have so much misinformation and we have so many different opinions and policies. Which one is right? Which one should we be following? I always tell people to understand who you are. What is your character? For some people, it's going to be a journey. Some people they're going to say, well, I don't even know who I am as a person. Who do you want to be? I don't even know that. Many people don't know where they are, where they want to be, and how to get there. But the idea of self-assessment is going to be there guiding you. Am I on that right track? And if you're not, then you need to figure out, well, what steps do I need to do to get there? So today we're going to be learning about self-assessment. And I wanted to show you, again, if you go to the blogs and you go over to resources and you're going to see, and they're looking for something specific, well, we are looking for something specific. So for my audio listeners, you're going to want to head over to revenconcepts.com a little bit later. And for my video listeners, you can just tune in, and then, of course, implement this action. Head over to looking for something special, right over to the right corner, type in assessment, and then just hit enter. And you're going to see that there's going to be blogs on assessment. One of the blogs I want you to focus on is the concept of auto tolerance. Now, auto tolerance, we have an episode on it. We have a blog on it, as you can see. But the idea of auto tolerance is going to be that critical self-assessment that you need to understand what that means. So I'm not going to talk about it because I want you to read it. And then you can also listen to the episode of the podcast and then learn about auto tolerance. And then you can learn about the evolution of mindset and then where you are made. All of this is self-assessment. And then Family Matters is about family, assessing your family. So there's a lot to assessing yourself. I make it very simple, but yet there's so many methods that you can do and utilize to really understand what self-assessment is. I'm going to get into those methods first because mine is very simple. One way that you can self-assess yourself is to journal. If you're journaling, you can just say, well, what's going on in my life? You can keep a diary. You can keep track of what's going on, what you're not doing, what happened, how did that make you feel? And then you can keep order, because then you can see growth and you can see failure. So for example, if you are in a career and you're trying to grow in your career, day one in your journal might be, I'm starting off in this career. I'm not 100% confident in it quite yet, but yeah, I'm going to keep on doing it. And then in 30 days, a journal entry might be, I just killed the presentation today. So there is a huge jump from where we were 30 days ago. We started unsure, can we fill the role, do the best we can, and then 30 days later, we just did a fantastic job on the presentation. So we have learned that with time, with structure, with some type of focus, we can come out better. And there's not many jobs that people go into, they learn the job, that eventually they don't become confident in that job. Yes, in the beginning of you doing something, there might be some insecurity. There might be a lot of checking the manual and things like that. But eventually it becomes second nature, where I'm just doing this because I can do this. And I love telling people about the podcast because when I started the podcast, video was messed up, the audio was messed up, everything is messed up, right? I didn't know what I was doing, but I got better. But the way I got better wasn't naturally just me doing it over and over and over again. It was me looking at what I was presenting, what I was putting out, the assessment aspect of it. Well, I said, how can this episode be better? How can the podcast be better? How can I be better? In all aspects, right? I just kept asking myself that question. How can I be better? From there, it was just like boom, 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 boom. Now, for people who are trying to do another popular step, right? The self-assessment aspect, they're going to want to, again, have some type of goals. And the way you can do that is by creating short-term and long-term goals. If you have a list of short-term goals, then you're going to say, well, this is what I want to do short-term and this is what I want to do long-term. If I had to break down me with the podcast, I would say my short-term goals were I want to make sure I have an episode coming out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. A long-term goal might be I want to have a certain guest on my podcast. For example, if I want to have Jordan Peterson on my podcast, I might say I would like to have Jordan Peterson on. I love his mindset, and I would love to understand a little bit more about what he thinks about mindset, and then understanding why he got into the work he got into the work. Now, of course, I can go into the other interviews he has done, and he has answered these questions before. But I always find when a different host, a different person is asking the questions, they create the environment, which we're going to be talking about next week. They create the environment for that guest, and that guest can say things that they might have never said before. And maybe they do say something, maybe something that is practiced, that is regimented, and then it's just going to be regurgitated because they have done it so much. But yet, can you get down? Can you get deep? Can you find the true answer for what you're looking for, the goal, that nugget that we always look for here in Coaching in Session? So the self-assessment part is knowing your goals, understanding when you want to get them going, and then having that due date too, right? Because if you don't have that due date, how can you assess? Because if you don't get to your goal by that due date, did you fail? Did you learn? Because there's not going to be so much of failing and like, oh my goodness, I can't do this. Because yes, people are going to have that type of mindset. But we can also have the mindset, if I failed, did I learn from my failure? Because if we can always learn from our failure, we are assessing that failure. We are saying, well, this is the reason I failed. Let me not do it again. Or let me change it up a little bit. People have a hard time doing this because if they're just doing something, and they're not getting the results that they want, why you keep doing the same thing? There's a concept I want to present to you. This is a concept that I utilize in my life when it comes to self-assessment, is the idea of pivoting. If you can learn how to pivot, you can do anything in the world, anything. If you have a business, right, and your business fails, pivot. Don't just say, well, I can't be a business owner because I failed at a business. Maybe the business that you had wasn't going to be in line with your skills and maybe what you truly wanted or what the world wants. Because if we look at the world, right, people buy what they need, right? People go to grocery stores because they need groceries. If people didn't need groceries, grocery stores would be obsolete. Yet people need groceries. People don't know how to grow their own food. So grocery stores have basically said, well, we're going to be here forever now because you don't even know how to grow food anymore. So that is where we are. Because if we create that need, then the business will thrive. The same thing here in coaching. In the coaching world, there's a lot of coaches that come on. There's a lot of coaches in the world. As you can see, every week I'm having episodes of coaches, wonderful coaches, come on, talk about what they do. And then again, from there, you get to choose what type of coach you want. We're going to be talking about that topic in the next coming weeks. But what I want you to understand is that there's going to be a lot of people who want to be coaches who are not effective coaches. Do they do self-assessment too, right? Because if a coach can't show up, that's my number one rule. If you don't show up, if you don't walk the walk and talk the talk, how can you say to someone else saying, hey, this is what you need to start to change? My mindset, yes, I always work on it. But if I had a very poor mindset and I was negative and I was always pessimistic and I had all this fear in me, I don't know how I can coach other people because it would just me be telling a lie. Yeah, I'm sure eventually it would become my truth, but how long would that take? Why not just go in ready, right? Be ready for bear. That's what one of my cooperating teachers said. Be ready for bear. You don't know what you're going to get every single day, but be equipped to handle it. But if you find that you're just going in life, right, every single day you're losing, it would behoove you to figure out why you're losing. And then to say, well, I'm losing, what adjustments have to be made? Some people can say, I'm losing, and they can learn very quickly. Let's make some adjustments. Let's do the pivot. And then they do the pivot, and then things work out. Maybe sometimes it could take a little bit longer for them to realize this is not working. It just comes down to your endurance, because if you can endure pain, if you can endure failure, you can go far in life. But if you're a person at the moment of fear, at the moment of pain, says, well, like this is something I don't want to do, then you're going to find that you're not going to be pushing in the times you're supposed to be pushing, because again, you have learned that habit. And that's a great thing to self-assess, right? Are you a person that is going to be operating on old data? Because if you find that, oh, I can't do this, why? Right? What is the reason why you can't do it? Who told you that? Who is the person that's saying you can't do this? And then from there, you need to learn to overcome that obstacle, overcome that barrier. And one of the best ways you can do that is with my favorite self-assessment tool is the concept of 100%. We are very familiar with what 100% is. We are very familiar with what 0% is too, or maybe below 65 if you're one of those people who would get an F on a test or something. So I hope that's not you. If you got a 65 to a 70, you got a D. If you got 70 to 80 or 79 or something like that is a C. 80 to 89 is going to be a B. And then from 90 plus is going to be some type of A. Or I think maybe 91 is like a B plus. I forget. Either way, we know the concept of grades from our upbringing. School has hardwired the idea, the concept of grades into our brain. So I said to myself, well, what is going to be the most effective tool for a person, especially here in America, who has went to school, probably K through 12? At that point, they have been indoctrinated into the system. That means their mind has already been developed to think a certain way, to believe certain things, and to operate how it was created to operate ineffectively. So I said to myself, well, why not use grades? Because grades are so powerful. An F can make you cringe and make you fear and say, oh my God, I can't believe I got an F. A C can make you do the same thing. An A can make you feel proud. So ask yourself, do you want to feel like that F or do you want to feel like that A? And it's an easy concept for people to understand because, again, it's hardwired into our brain. It's the foundation of what school is, your grade. Yeah, I understand some schools are getting away from grades and things like that, saying, well, it's not about the grade because guess what? It doesn't matter if you fail or if you succeed and you get an A. We're still going to pass you along. That's why kids who are 16 years old don't know how to read, because there's not a system in place. Yeah, if that child learns self-assessment saying, well, if I want to learn how to read, what are the steps, what are the processes for me to learn how to read effectively? And for some people, they don't even want to do that self-assessment type of thinking. They would rather be uncertain, stay in the shadows in the dark, rather than know the truth. And that is where our potential is, right? Where we shine the most, where we're going to shine the brightest. And that's going to be when we operate at 100%. So when I wake up in the morning, I do a self-assessment. And this is just how I do things. I wake up, I do a check-in, and I say, okay, where am I at? I might say I'm at 89%. And then after that 89%, I say, okay, well, why am I 89%, right? I'm inquiring why I'm not 100%. So I'm trying to figure out why I'm a B today and not an A. How can I be an A? Oh, it was the foods I ate yesterday, maybe. Maybe it's the mindset. I have a lot of stress on my mind and I'm trying to figure out all of these different things and I'm trying to navigate all these different paths. So my mind is not focused. How can I get more focused? How can I become more focused? And the best way to become more focused is to understand that you're out of focus. Because if you are a cameraman, for example, or if you're taking pictures on your smartphone, most people have smartphones, you know when you have a good picture or you have a blurry picture, right? Is your life blurry? Is your life focused? Most people are just living in that blurry life. that blurry vision for themselves. Yet we all know the concept of what an A is. We all know what the concept of what a good picture looks like or what an in-focus picture looks like. You're not going to hire a photographer who's going to take out-of-focus pictures. Maybe eventually it's going to become one of those trends where the picture that someone takes, if it's blurry, they go, oh, that's a great picture. Probably not, right? Yes, it could be something that's coming up. And then, of course, if it does happen, just understand that is what I brought to you first. Either way, we need to know that the standards are there. We have to develop those standards when we do our assessments. So if I'm not 100%, right, my standard is to be 100% as often, as frequently as possible. I know I can't do it every single day, whether it be because of family, whether it be because of job. There's so many factors that can take away from me, that detract from me, right? I talked about the idea of self, career, and family already on one of the episodes of the podcast. The same thing is true in our self-assessment, because if we're looking at our life, we need to look at ourselves first. Because if we're not looking at ourselves, then how can we start to make adjustments? And I think in our society, in our world right now, looking at yourself is selfish. Right? You're being selfish if you're worried about your life. You're being selfish if you put yourself first or if you prioritize yourself first. And there is a difference between being selfish and prioritizing yourself and making sure that you're at 100%. Think of it this way, right? If you're in school and you're studying for a big test tomorrow, but your best friend says, hey, come over and let's play video games. Do you go over and play video games, or do you go and study for your test? Maybe you don't play video games, so maybe you have a friend who says, oh, let's go to the park together. And your friend says, well, I have to study. And then the friend says, well, you could study later after we had our fun at the park. You say, okay, cool. Yeah, you'd be more effective if you had a longer study session. Not saying that everyone needs this, right? Some people can study for 10 minutes and they're good. Some people need to study for a whole 5 hours. It just depends on the person. But if you're studying for a big test, you're going to want to get as much studying as possible. And then you have to sacrifice certain areas to understand that sacrifice is just delayed gratification. That means you can play with your friend, just not right now. All right. So you're going to say, I'm going to play with you. It's just, I can't do it right now. I have to study for the test, right? We prioritize ourselves. And for the people who don't prioritize themselves or prioritize what's important to them, they're going to come out on the other end unhappy, unfulfilled, and unsatisfied because they did not get the results that they were looking for. They got the F. And then they wonder why they got the F. Because they're not going to blame themselves because, again, excuses, right? What is the reason? Who can be my scapegoat, right? The excuse is so powerful today. So my self-assessment is not going to be, well, the reason why my life is this because my boss is a jerk and he's making me work all these hours. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm always tired. I'm always tired. Okay. I understand the concept of having a boss that can be very strict and has certain guidelines, and you have to show up for it. And job can be stressful, right? Jobs are stressful, but you have to understand how much do you put yourself in that job. If you give yourself that career Monday through Friday of that stress, do you distress on Saturday and Sunday enough to handle that week again? And yes, that is the wrong way to be living, right? Utilizing the weekend to recover so you can be in pain again Monday through Friday. But life, true life, is not about just finding pleasure and pleasantries all the time, right? We are not always going to be happy. There is going to be a difference between if you're happy and if you're sad. For example, if someone you love died, you're probably going to be sad. But yet, if you're just going to work and you're doing your regular business, you're probably not going to be happy either, right? It just becomes our homeostasis, right? That becomes our level, right? Where we like to stay. And that is the natural balance of what a human mind does. But yet, we don't look for a balance in how much we challenge ourselves, because we can always raise that homeostasis level up a little bit, right? And that's where we want to be. We want to be just at the point of we're pushing ourselves enough, but we're not at that burnout. What is that sweet spot for you? For me, I have found the sweet spot. I have found what works for me. I have found the best and effective ways to recharge when I'm feeling drained. I have found the best ways to get rid of stress. I have found the best ways to understand my mindset and my way of thinking. And it might not look at other people, but it does look at me. It looks at what I need. Am I being selfish? No, I'm being real. I'm being real with myself because I understand if I'm at 100% more often than not, I can help more people. Who doesn't want a person to help more people in the world? Yes, it might be unfair to certain people, but they look at that moment, that small moment of this is unfair, but yet you're able to give them a life full of abundance in the future. People want instant gratification all the time, all the time, all the time. Give me, give me, give me now versus I know I can wait. And when it comes to self-assessment, I don't want you to forget this also. I want you to understand that there's going to be a daily check-in and what I do every single morning. But then you should have a weekly check-in, right? And you look at the whole entire week. How did this week go? So when you're looking at your week of your boss and having your 2 days off to take a break, understand that that just happened. And then from there, you can say, well, all right, the weeks have been done. Now we're at the month. We do a month check-in. And then we say, okay, well, how was this month? Did we have some growth? Did we have some progress? And it's not just money. Understand that. It's not just money. It can be money, but it's not just money. Ask yourself, how was this month for you, right? In your relationship, same thing, self-assessment. In your workplace, self-assessment. In your role as a family member, self-assessment, right? Understanding the daily aspect, understanding the weekly aspect, understanding the monthly aspect, and even going all the way to the year aspect, right? How did you do last year, right? We do that a lot for New Year's. Typically in January 1st or December 31st, we're like, hey, how was this last year? People might say, well, last year sucked. 2023 is going to be my best year yet. But you said that for 2022. This self-assessment, we're looking at our year. You look at the accumulation of the year because you're like, well, how was this year? And you might say, well, this year was no good because I didn't get what I want. But how can you get what you want in the span of a year if you didn't get what you wanted in the span of a day, a week, a month? It adds up. It's the accumulation. Success is the accumulation of good habits and good traits. It's not just one day out of the year we focus on ourselves and we do the self-assessment saying, well, what needs to be changed? What needs some adjustment? And for those people who can't make those adjustments, then that's when they're unhappy. That's when they find that they don't have much progress in their life. A perfect test that was pretty popular, I believe, like 2 years ago was they told kids that, hey, you can have this chocolate bar now, or you can have 2 chocolate bars later. Delayed gratification. Some kids said, well, I'm going to have this chocolate bar now. But then some said, well, I'm going to wait and I'm going to get 2 chocolate bars. This is something perfect to do with your children if you're a parent. Understanding that you can get stuff quick or you can get stuff in time, right? We work for it though, right? It is so much better. I find that after a hard day of work, so let's say I'm in the garden because I don't have to go to work for a boss or anything. If I'm in the garden and I'm planting and I'm shoveling and I'm tilling soil and I'm like, this is a tough job, right? This is a lot of work, right? I'm doing a lot of work and I have a lot of garden space in the back. I have found after that, me just doing that action, I feel good. I feel good about what just happened. But for some people, they just go to work. They get used to going to work. They come home. They're used to their house, yet they don't do anything too strenuous. I'm not saying that you don't have a strenuous job. What I'm saying is that sleep that night is going to feel amazing. Whether you go to the gym and you are sore and you come home the next day, you're like, oh, I can't move. My body's so sore. But let me tell you, that's some of the sweetest pain ever. So when you do that self-assessment, understand that feeling of numbness and of soreness. That's growth. That's growth happening in your life. You might not be at 100%, but you're going to create a new 100% for yourself. You're going to be stronger. You're going to be more effective. And at that point, you can start to accomplish anything in your life. The idea of self-assessment is looking at your life for all it is, for all it can be, and then making plans, developing strategies and systems